my name's Jenny. Today we're going to talk about pencils. I love talking about pencils because I'm a drawing instructor. I've been with the Valley Art Center for some time, and my favorite thing to do in the whole wide world is to draw. So let's talk about pencils and why we are comfortable with them. We've all used pencils. If you've ever taken a test, I know we all have, the 2B pencil is everybody's favorite. And you may very well find that when you start drawing, you're going to find your favorite pencil too. But let's talk about the different characteristics of pencils. So believe it or not, there are actually 17 different degrees of pencils. They start with B's, and the higher the number, the darker, the more graphite in the pencil. The less the number, they go back from an 8B down back to an H, which is hard. That's kind of a standard. And then they go to the other side, believe it or not, up to a 9H. I've never even seen a 9H, but I guess they exist. And you would probably use that kind of a pencil for something very specific, like drafting work, something that needs to be so controlled. So that is the expanse of your pencils. Now, when you're doing art, the idea is to work smart, not hard. That's why we have all these different kinds of pencils and the numbers, because you can let the pencil do the work for you. All right, let's talk about pencils and what they can do for you. Sometimes you are going to want to do something that is going to be the basis for doing a drawing, something that you want to be able to mark things, but knowing that it's not permanent and dark. That would normally be an H pencil or an HB. This guy is kind of a little bit of the Goldilocks. It's got a little bit of hardness, meaning that it's not going to wear down quickly, but it's got a little bit of darkness, so it's not too smudgy, not too much. So an HB, I like to think of as the Goldilocks of pencils. Lets you put work in there and it lets you erase. Now, let's talk about if we decide we're going to start doing some shading, because we've gotten pretty sophisticated in the way we draw. So you can start out with something that is the 2B, which is what we use for test taking. That's going to give you just a little bit more darkness than, say, even the HB. So we can just do a little line here. This may be hard to see the differences in them. It's really more of a feel kind of thing, because this one's going to feel pretty good on the paper, but as I get to higher numbers like a 3 or a 4 or an 8, or if you're really crazy, a lot of people's favorite pencil, the ebony. These babies are like liquid gold. If you're doing drawing, you can rub, you can do it. This is the fun part. Look at the smear factor. Fun if you want it, not fun if you don't. So think about this when you're doing a drawing and working with pencils. Don't work into the work that you're doing. If you're right-handed, you're probably going to start left to right, work left, go to the right. And you can always put a piece of paper underneath your hand. Our oils in our hands are going to pick up on that graphite and it's going to smear. So you definitely don't want that. This is what will happen. It's great on a finger, great for smearing, great if you're wearing eyeliner, not so good on a drawing. So that's our B's. They are my favorite. You're going to find your favorite. Mine's a 4B. I just like the way it works. It has control. It will, you'll notice as you work with the higher numbers, every time you work with them, the higher the number, the softer, the more sharpening you're going to need to do. So remember how we talked about that HB pencil is that guy right in the middle. If you look at this guy, when I make a mark with it, it's got some nice darkness, but it's also keeping the point. A lot of people really like to use this pencil if they're just trying to do simple line work first, because it's not too messy. So the next pencil next to the HB, working to the right and going with the H pencils, which stands for hardness, that's what the H is the 2H. This guy's pretty good. You'll find it draws on the pencil a little bit rougher than, say, a B pencil, because it's just got a certain amount of hardness, which is great though if you're trying to retain shape. Wonderful, wonderful for cross-hatching. This is really great, which is one of my favorite techniques. And as you know with cross-hatching, the more lines, the darker it gets. So the 2H is really good for that. As you start to move into the higher H pencils, they will keep their sharpness, they will give you a nice fine line, but what they will also do is, because the lead in here, and it's not really lead anymore, the graphite makes these lines, you run the risk of actually, and you can almost hear it, it scratches into the paper. It can be a great effect if you want that, but if you made these hard lines and you say, oh my goodness, I really don't want that in there, and you try to erase it, chances are those ridges are still in there, and if you go over it with another pencil, those ridges are still in there. Look at that graphite gets caught in those lines. Great effect if you want it, but if you weren't trying to achieve that, it can be a real pain. It might mean starting the whole project over. We don't want to see you do that. The whole point of the pencil is that it is one of those things that you can put it down, but you can remove it. So that is the joy of the pencils. Now, we can't talk about pencils without talking a little bit about how you keep the points on them and how you erase the marks you make. A lot of these kits, and this happens to be one that we had around, has all the pencils, it has all the sharpeners. You're gonna get kind of a cruddy little sharpener with them, and they'll work, they'll do okay, but you may find as you start doing this, oh, look at that, you're breaking it off. So, there are a couple of different ways you can sharpen your pencils. You can simply go out and buy a better pencil sharpener like one of these, or you can go old school with a X-Acto knife and actually sharpen them this way and actually take part of this off of here, retaining the lead. Just something to think about, and you'll figure out if you want it to be an easy, maintenance-free kind of drawing experience or whether you want to really, really create a certain kind of lead. So that's how we sharpen. Last but not least, this is going to be your best friend when you're drawing, the kneaded eraser. They call them kneaded erasers because the uglier they get, you need them the more. Not really. They really call them kneaded erasers because they come in a kind of squarish form at first, and you pull them apart and use them. So when I pull this apart and use it, watch this. It's amazing. Well, not so amazing, but look at how it pulls all that lead off of there. You don't want that there. You can just get rid of it. Another great technique you can do with that, let's just show you. If you have a shaded area and you're saying, oh my goodness, too dark, I need to lighten it up, you simply pull this apart and you can pull this out and create some wonderful shading by just getting rid of some of that graphite that's sitting on the paper. So I think you should be well on your way with this information. Have fun.